Hello. Oh, I think I was caught having a sip of hot drink. Hello. I hope everyone's well. Um, oh, I just realized my little message down the bottom, it says the wrong thing, so I might just fix that up. Ah, it says welcome to Saigon Sim Reap trip. It is great to be here for another info session, this time about the most amazing trip. I'm so excited about Sri Lanka in 2026. So, this trip is going to depart in March next year. And I am super, super excited. So, if you are tuning in tonight, I'd love if you could say hi in the comments so I know that you're here. And just put a little message in the comments about where you're tuning in from tonight. And yeah, if anyone's been to Sri Lanka before, please pop that in the comments as well. I would love to know. I can see there's lots of people already tuning in, which is fantastic. I'm ready for another fantastic info session. So please, if you have any questions as we're going along, definitely drop those in the comments as well, so that I can answer them as I go. Or if I can't answer them, I will get back to you as soon as I can. Hi Mandy. Oh, hi Sarah. Oh, it's fantastic to have you guys here. Sarah's in Canberra. Oh, Danielle, Adventures of Possum Ruby's here as well. Fantastic. Monica's here from Melbourne. Oh wow, we're all from everywhere tonight. Sue's here from Preston in Melbourne. Hi Sue. I am here in Geelong in Victoria, so outside Melbourne. Um, Hi Sue. Hi Mez. And hi Linda. Linda's in East Gippsland. Oh, it's fantastic. There's quite a few people that I recognize who have been on Pip Co Travel trips before. If you have been on a Pip Co trip before, put in the comments the country or the countries you've been to. I think that's amazing to see where everyone's been, and if there's some people that know each other on the chat tonight. I know there are a few who have been on the same trip together. Yippee, can't wait to hear all about it. Yes, yay. So enough chitter chatter from me. I am going to jump straight into talking about Sri Lanka. Simone's listening while driving home from Pottery in the Hunter Valley. Oh, that sounds lovely, Simone. It's lovely to have you here tonight. And Mez was in Borneo, and Mandy, of course, was in Vietnam last year, Mandy. So many amazing trips, and we've only been going for a little while too. Linda, Rotary trip. That's right, back in 2022. That was like the first post-COVID. Let's get out of here. um, Danielle went to Laos, yay! And Sue's been on lots: Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Borneo. Jan again, Borneo, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Wiradjuri as well, Jan. You're my frequent flyer. Awesome. So, and Sarah, Borneo, Cambodia, and Laos, yay! There is a lot to talk to tonight, and I'm very excited about sharing some of the information with you about the Sri Lanka trip. So, there's a couple of things I wanted to point you towards. One is the Pip Co Travel website, so where you can see the details, and of course, that will take you to the booking page. And again, as normal for people who have booked with me before, it's a $500 deposit to save your spot on the trip. And that is a non-refundable deposit, but it is a lifetime valid deposit. So if you had to cancel for some reason, you don't lose that money, but you can put it towards another trip. And then the balance of the rest of the remaining amount is due 90 days before the trip. And of course, I'm more than happy to set up a payment plan as well. So definitely talk to me about doing that. That is easy done. So Sri Lanka. I'm going to try and share my screen and see if this works, because I want to see if I can do it. I remember last time I mucked around with this and then I lost all my comments, and now I'm scared to press any other buttons just in case I lose comments again, which was not ideal. So maybe I might just leave it. But what I wanted to talk to you about was the itinerary direction while we're in Sri Lanka. So there is a map on the website if you wanted to have a look, but you can easily go onto Google Maps and have a look too. So if you can imagine Sri Lanka, the island, a little teardrop island off the southern coast of India. Colombo, the capital city where we'll all be flying into, is on the southwestern side of the island. So that's the starting point for the itinerary. It's an 11-day trip. We've all fly into Colombo, and that's the starting point. And I'll talk about flights and access in a minute. But that is the first night of the trip. We'll be in Colombo in the capital city. Then we head northeast, and we go up to Anuradhapura. So this is part of what's known as the Cultural Triangle. There's some really amazing historical sites within a little triangle kind of angle out from Colombo. And we stay a couple of nights up there, and then we come back down to Sigiriya, and then down to Dambulla to Kandy, in the high country, in the hill country, the tea plantation country. Catch the train down to Nuwara Eliya, again in the tea plantation area of Sri Lanka, where we should get some milder weather. And then down to Yala National Park, down to the coast on the southern point of the island. And then to Galle, which is another famous historic UNESCO World Heritage listed city in the southern point of the island. And that's where the trip ends. And then for people flying out on the 11th of March, which is the final day of the trip, transfers will be included from Galle. So it is about 2.5 hours from Galle to the airport. If you would like to stay longer in Galle, of course you can do that. It's a beautiful place, and you will just need to book. I can book the airport transfer. You will need to pay for your own airport transfer if you're departing on a day after the 11th. Gail's here from Ballarat. Hi, Gail. So that's a little bit of geography. Sri Lanka has so much, I guess, influence and colonial past from Portuguese have been in Sri Lanka, the Dutch, the British, and they've been independent since the 40s, 1948, I think. And there is English spoken in Sri Lanka, as well as Sinhala and Tamil as well. So real mix of influences and history to explore as well. So 10 nights in Sri Lanka. It is $4,290 per person for a twin share and $5,640 for your own room. The accommodation on this trip is pretty nice. Yeah, it's a little bit of a step up from previous Pip Co Travel trips. I'd say closer to a 4.5, maybe even 5-star for a couple of the hotels. Really lovely places to be staying in. I think one of the things we can look forward to with Sri Lanka is hospitality, and accommodation is just done really beautifully. Some of the infrastructure might not be as good in terms of roads, and transports are a little bit slower than maybe we were used to, but I think accommodation we're going to find is just pretty amazing. So I will talk a little bit about the hotels we're staying in a minute too, but I just wanted to talk about air access for us flying from Australia. And exciting news, I've booked my flight. So I'm definitely coming to Sri Lanka in March 2026, and I'm very excited. And I have booked my flights. Is it Mandy suitable? Yes. Are you talking about the standard of accommodation? You're going to love it. There's doors that close, no thin walls. No, I don't know what else was happening. No outdoor bathrooms. Yeah, very nice accommodation. And air access is pretty good from Australia. So Sri Lankan Airlines actually flies direct from a couple of cities in Australia. So from Melbourne, I know we can have direct flights with Sri Lankan Airlines. You could also fly via Singapore, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, and then join with a Sri Lankan Airlines flight into Colombo. So if you want to fly Qantas or Thai or whatever airline you're affiliated with, you can do that as well. One thing to keep in mind is that a lot of the flights from Australia get in the evening time. So when you're looking at flights, you might need to look at arriving the day before on the 28th of Feb. I know that my flight from Melbourne via Singapore is, think it gets in around 9 or 10 p.m. So I've booked to arrive the night before, book an extra night at the hotel in Colombo, and then have the morning to kind of get settled. And then we will all be meeting up in the afternoon, ready to get the trip started with a walking trip around Colombo and through to the bazaar and markets of the city, which I think will be a really great way to say hi to Sri Lanka and meet everyone and meet our guide. Um, so there's a couple of questions here. Mez has said, I noticed that very few dinners are included, and what are the general plans for evenings? Yeah, this was a suggestion to me by the guides that we're working with in Sri Lanka. They have found that there's so many restaurants and offerings around the places we're going to that we don't need to include as many meals as we did, say, on the Borneo trip, where the options for eating weren't so wide. I mean, we were kind of limited where we were staying. So we've definitely got the welcome dinner in Colombo and the farewell dinner in Gaul. And as for plans throughout the rest of the trip, I think it will be a bit go with the flow, see what everyone's feeling like. We're staying obviously in hotels and resorts that have restaurants all the time. So we've got that option there if we want to eat in-house. Otherwise, we have got these amazing cities and towns on our doorstep like Kandy and Gaul, Nuara Eliya to explore and to find places to eat in. And we will have a big list of recommendations of places. Another exciting thing too for people with dietary requirements, vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian, even gluten-free, there's going to be some really great eating options for us who don't eat meat or don't eat gluten or dairy. So that's something really exciting too. So yeah, lunches will be another thing as well. We've only got the one high tea, which is included other than breakfast. So yeah, lunches again will be, seeing what's available, feeling what we fancy. And I think a lot of the time we'll stick together naturally, but there might be times where we want to go and explore in smaller groups or by ourselves, and that is perfectly fine as well. Danielle, Adventures of Possum Room, he says, great flight deals with Qantas at the moment. Yeah, that's really great to know. I booked my flight with Qantas too. And yeah, I think that's going to be a good way to get in and to get home as well. So I was talking a little bit about food just briefly then, so I might as well keep talking about food. There's lots to talk about. Rice and curry is obviously a staple, Sri Lankan cuisine, and whether those are veggie curries, dals, meat curries, seafood curries, there just seems to be an endless, endless array of curry options. Heaps of great vegetarian options: pumpkin, eggplant, jackfruit, lentil, cashew, beans. I mean, the list really just went on and on. And some great, really interesting roti kind of options and hoppers. I don't know if you've ever seen people eating the hoppers, which are like a bowl-shaped pancake made of rice flour. It's more of a breakfast thing. A lot of things are coconut based as well, and fresh fruit like pineapples are just everywhere. Coconuts obviously for drinking, and surprising no one, tea is the drink of choice. So for all your tea lovers, put in the comments if you're a tea lover. You're going to love the drinks in Sri Lanka, all that tea. Us coffee lovers, I don't think are going to be as happy as all the tea lovers, but that's okay. Maybe we will be converted into being tea lovers as well. And some other yummy kind of softy options like ginger beer and lime juice, which I am a sucker for lime juice. I think, yeah, it's really nice and refreshing. Great in the heat. Talking about heat, a good segue. March, when the trip is happening, is a great time of year to be in Sri Lanka. It's the end of the high season, but the weather is pretty good. One of the websites I was looking at just pretty much says it's the optimum time to be in Sri Lanka across the whole island. It's pretty dry. The temperatures can get pretty warm, low to mid 30s in some parts of the island. Um, but up in the hills where we are spending some time up in the tea country, we will get lower temperatures around the mid 20s, which I think will be really nice and pleasant and comfortable. Um, so we've got all up 4 nights up in Kandy and Nuwara area. So that's a pretty good portion of the trip, which I think will be really, really nice to be up there in a slightly milder, well, pretty mild temperature. Um, so in terms of clothing, I mean, obviously, really summery stuff. You will just need to pack some knee length and a shoulder covering t-shirt for when we go to the temple in Kandy, and so just for covering up for the religious site. But yeah, otherwise, just your normal kind of warm weather, hot stuff, hats, and all that kind of stuff. Um, so some of the highlights that I think are going to be right up there for you guys for me as well. I'm very, very excited about a few of the things that are kind of standing out for me in this itinerary. And one is the second and third night of the trip when we're out of Colombo. So the first place that we leave after we've left Colombo, we're going up to a place called Kandalama, and we're staying in this resort, which is the first and only all women operated resort in Sri Lanka. And I think it looks beautiful, and it's going to be a really fantastic place to experience, all female run and operated resort. And so that's the second and third nights. We've got 2 nights there. We get to go to 2 national parks during our time in Sri Lanka. So 2 separate safaris. So one is in the northern part of the island called the Minaria National Park. And that's pretty famous for its elephant herds. So if we're lucky, hopefully we'll get to spot some elephants there, which I think will be fantastic. Later on in the trip, we are going to Yala National Park, which is in the southern part of the island, right down on the coast. And it's probably the most famous national park. It's huge. So we've selected to go to a part of the national park which is a bit less visited than the main section. And what is amazing about Yala is that there are leopards in Yala. So if we are very fortunate, we might be able to spot a leopard. But again, there's elephants there, crocodiles, deer, peacocks, lots of bird life as well. So that is something really high up on my exciting list to see some, amazing wildlife on safari in Sri Lanka. A couple of other really cool things I'm looking forward to and to sharing with everyone in Kandy. So in the middle of the trip, in the middle of the island, Kandy up in the tea country, we get to do a cooking experience with a local family. So going to the market, doing some food prep, learning about cooking and Sri Lankan cuisine with a local family. I think that's going to be really cool. On that same day in the evening, we are going to do a little walk around the village with some local women, learn about their life in the village, meet some other women who are working as local artisans and entrepreneurs, and find out about what they do to support their families and their life in Kandy. So I think just a couple of kind of, different experiences which gets us exposed and thinking about life in Sri Lanka for regular everyday people who aren't necessarily directly involved in the tourism and hospitality industry. And I think they'll be really, really, really interesting and a great way to support local people as well. Couple of tea lovers. Oh yeah, a few tea lovers here. Danielle's yes, Linda's yay, lots of tea. Sue, love my tea properly made in a pot. Yes, okay, fingers crossed. Mez, what are the gratuity expectations in Sri Lanka so we know the extra cost to allow for? Yeah, great question, Mez. So I have what I normally do on trips, and I think it works quite well. I mean, let me know otherwise if you've been on trip before, but what we normally do is organize a tip kitty in advance. So we do some calculations based on the things we think we're going to need to tip for throughout the trip. So let's say for Sri Lanka, I've done a very quick, rough workout in my head, and I've kind of said, $2 to $3 per day per person. So let's say we make it $3, so that's roughly $33 per person for the tip kitty, and that will be managed by me or by the local guide. We need to convert it into Sri Lankan rupee as well. And it just takes the pressure off everyone knowing how much to tip, having the right change, having money on you. And I think a tip kitty does work really well. So I would, just initially in my initial thoughts, and I will come up with a stronger, more fixed number, but roughly that 33 US dollar amount for a tip kitty. In addition, we normally do our own tip for the local guide as well at the end of the trip. So again, it's a rough estimate, but again, that kind of $3 to $4 per day per person is a really great guide. And that's up to the individual to determine how much they want to give. There's no obligation at all. And please don't feel like, you need to be shelling out heaps of money, but it is just it's a really kind of generous thing about having this opportunity to travel overseas and to support people working hard in industries. And yeah, I think if we just, we've got that in mind, and I will, closer to time, just make sure everyone's across what they need to do and how much they need to have. Great. Yeah, I think everyone's pretty on board with the tip kitty idea. I think it's great. I wish that, even when you're traveling by yourself, you could have a tip kitty, get someone else to look after it for you. Doesn't work that way though, does it? So yeah, if you've got any other questions about tip kitty, definitely reach out to me and let me know. Hi, Suze. So we don't need US dollars for the trip necessarily. A lot of the time, things like costs, expenses, tips, and things like that are quoted in US dollars just for ease of conversion for people around the world, I guess. So local currency is probably the best thing to have. So the Sri Lankan rupee. So you can get that out either before you go in Australia, but probably the easiest thing to do is to get some out the ATM when you land at the airport or at the hotel in Colombo when you first arrive. So, and I can give some guidelines about, exchange rate and how much I think you're going to need to get out. From experience, it's always worth having a fair bit of cash, because I think we take for granted here that we can always tap or use our cards. But in a lot of places where we're buying drinks, snacks, meals, souvenirs, things like that, they can be cash only environments. And I think it is really handy to have probably more cash than you think you might need on you, so that you're not caught short. But, it's never going to be the end of the world, because there's always someone there on the trip that can, spot you some money. So don't worry too much about that. But yeah, I think local currency, definitely the way to go for cash. I've had a couple of fitness questions, because there are a couple of walks on the trip. So for anyone with dodgy knees, dodgy ankles, dodgy hips, any of those kind of things, there are a couple of things which are on the more moderate to moderate difficult kind of level. One is climbing Sigiriya Rock Fortress, which is on day 3, I think, of the itinerary. It is high, and challenging. So the walk itself is up steps. It's exposed up the rock. We do it early in the morning so that we're not in the peak of the heat. But I think anyone who's got an aversion to heights might need to consider whether they want to do it. and you need to be able to climb up, I think it's about 1,200 steps. So it could take anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour and a half. But the best thing is that if you do want to do part of it, you can go up part and then turn back and, sit out the rest. There's a museum, there's gardens, all kinds of stuff down the bottom. So for anyone who opts out, there's stuff for you to do as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. And the Dambulla Cave on the way to Kandy, that is, much less challenging, but still, I think it's about a 15-minute walk up some steps too. But the best thing about being in a group of women as well is that we all just take at our own pace. We take plenty of breaks. And, we just get there when we get there. And I think that's really nice. There's no rushing to be the Speedy Gonzalez up the hill. No way, Jose. So there were some of the highlights I've talked about. A couple of things I haven't mentioned is we're going to visit a tea estate called the Pedro Tea Estate. So I think that'll be a new experience for a lot of us, seeing how tea is plucked, how it's actually gone, taken from the ground to turned into tea leaves. And there's just tea everywhere. Talking about tea, we will have the opportunity to have a beautiful high tea at the very historic Grand Hotel in Nuwara Eliya. I think that will be super, super nice as well. I love a high tea, so I am very much looking forward to that. Train travel in Sri Lanka is really, really popular, and we are going to be doing one of the most scenic journeys. So from Kandy to Nuwara Eliya, so this is up in the tea country in this central part of the island. We are going to be taking the train. It's about a 4-hour journey. And then our little minibus will pick us up at the end. And I think that will be a really, really cool experience as well. So that is something really cool to look forward to. If you're interested in looking up the hotels that we're going to be staying in, or you'd like to book a night prior to the trip or a night at the end of the trip, the hotels are all on the booking page as well, but you can note these down, or I can put them in the comments. But the Grand Bell in Colombo is the first night, so for us in Colombo. The Ambayalu is the women operated resort. Earl's Regency in Kandy, which is like a historic place, looks a bit quirky. We're staying in 2 Jetwing owned properties, and they have really great sustainability policies. Jetwing St Andrews, and then Jetwing in Yala, just outside the national park. And then finishing the trip at the very nice Le Grand in Gaul, and it's pretty fancy. So if you are interested in booking a night at the end, Le Grand Gaul is quite expensive. I think it's going to be worth it to stay there, but just so you know, it is a little bit pricier than what I would normally offer. So a twin room is $380 and a single room is $345 Australian dollars. So if that's out of your budget and you still want to stay in Gaul, just let me know, because I do have a couple of other options which are a little bit cheaper if you want to book something in Gaul after the trip finishes. Otherwise, splurge out and stay there. Talking about hotels, I'm very excited to announce that I am also doing an early bird booking bonus for this trip. So if you are one of the first 2 people to book in for the Sri Lanka trip, you will score yourself a night free in Colombo the night before the trip begins. So that's on the 28th of Feb. And that is valued at 175 Aussie dollars. Really awesome bonus, especially because all of our flights from Australia get in, at night. So I think a lot of us will be flying in the night before. So jump on the trip, make sure you book yourself in so you can grab that early bird bonus. If you want to speak to me before you book, please feel free to send me a message or give me a call tomorrow. That is fine. Um, and I'm super excited. Please, before we finish up, any questions you've got at all, jot them down now. Sue has got a question. Do you recommend small luggage to travel with? Um, this is, I guess, a personal preference of what you prefer to travel with. I always think it's nice to be able to carry your luggage for a short distance if you can. So if it's not too big that you can carry it by yourself. But we always have a lot of help with our luggage. We never have to drag it or lift it for very, very long distances. So if your suitcase is really big and you can't lift it, I don't think it's a big deal. Um, so personal preference down to that one, or what you already have at home that you want to travel with. I definitely think a crossbody handbag, or if you want a little backpack, definitely something you can travel with through the day that's big enough for the key things that you need. So sunscreen, hat, water bottle, um, money, phone, charger, maybe a scarf or some sort of cover up. Um, just those little things that you can travel with so that you can have those with you so you need it when you need it through the day. So whether that is a handbag or a backpack, again, personal preference. We're not doing a heap of hardcore hiking or anything like that. So I think a handbag would be fine as well. Um, and definitely, because it is going to be hot, I think hydration is really important. So bring a drink bottle so we can do refillables as we go along, so we can cut down on buying all those nasty plastic bottles. When we've got our own, it's really easy. Coconuts are amazing for hydration as well, so a little nice fresh coconut. um, Mandy, do you recommend the extra night at the end? Mandy, up to you. I've just noticed with flights that, again, flying back to Melbourne, I have booked, I have to remember what time it is, but I think it's around midday. Danielle, you might know because I know you've booked your flight as well. And so factoring in that it's 2.5 hours from Gaul, plus you got to be at the airport another 2 hours. So, that means I'll be, leaving at 7:30, 8 o'clock. So if you do want the extra time, I think an extra night would be lovely. But again, it's up to you, money, time, away, all those things, or what flight you end up going with as well. So that is a flight that I've booked with Sri Lankan Airways and Qantas to Melbourne. Mandy, access to water is available throughout. Yes, so at the hotels we will have access to water. Look, I think if we don't have access through the day, we can always buy water. We're never not going to be able to buy water, so don't worry too much about that. I need to check whether we're going to have access to one of those gallon things on our minibus, which I'm pretty sure we do, but I do need to confirm that because it does make it easier. Then we just know we've got it. We don't have to worry. I like to have it too. Sarah, any social enterprises? Great question, Sarah. Other than the village walk, we're doing the women, and that is pretty much this kind of the only kind of standout social enterprise that we've got in the trip. I think that's a really great idea though. So I will do some more hunting, and when I do my recce trip next month as well, for a social enterprise restaurant or cafe that we can support on one of our meals that we have free, because we do have a lot of kind of free meals through the itinerary. So I'll do some hunting around, especially in Kandy, Nuara area, those two places where we've got 2 nights up our sleeves, and I know that there's some really great food options there. And I have not gone down the track of the elephant kind of sanctuary side of things, but there's that as well. But I think yeah, there's probably some other things that we can do instead, but that is a great question. Danielle, yes, the flights leave at noon. Yeah, okay. That's the Melbourne connection one. Um, and I know some other people like Sydney, Brizzy, Perth will have different different connections. But if you're flying through Singapore, that it probably will be the 12 o'clock noon flight. Um, so that is a very, I feel like I've raced, I always feel like I'm talking a million miles an hour. um, please let me know if you have any other questions before we wrap up. Yeah, like I said, I'm so excited about this trip. I think it's going to be amazing. Sri Lanka really has something to offer for everyone, whether it's, its culture, its history, its nature and wildlife, beaches, food. Um, I think it's one of those great, you know, package of an offer. Mez says, what's the average drink and meal price like in Sri Lanka? Yeah, great question, Mez. I know it varies a lot. So there are some really high priced, fancy places. There's a lot of mid range, what they seem to call like family kind of dining options, which I think is where we will try and eat, at least a few of our meals. And then, of course, there's the more street food snack options as well. I can get you a little bit more of a better guideline for food and drink prices at different levels. Um, and I think, it'll be up to everyone about how much, they want to spend. But I think if we have an idea of what the street, the mid range, and the upper is going to look like, that'll make budgeting for those extra meals a little bit easier. Danielle, the train ride is approximately 4 hours. So that's the Candy to Nuwara earlier. Yep. And yep, on Qantas. So I think that's pretty much everything. On the first day, I don't think I talked to you about that we are doing something in the afternoon. So if you can get in before check in, so before 1 or 2 o'clock on the first day, that'd be great. So we can all meet up together before we head out to the PETA Grand Bazaar in Colombo on the first day. Sue, how much do you recommend we allocate for each day? Yeah, great question, Sue. I think I will need to crunch some numbers and get back to you about that, because I can factor in meals at different levels, plus tipping, plus maybe some, a little bit extra for any drinks as well. So if you're happy, I will get back to you about that, and I will put it up here in the comments so everyone can see as well. Visas, yes, great question, Sue, and that was on my list. So thank you very much for reminding me. Australians do need a visa for Sri Lanka, and you can get that online. When I checked, it was $35 for a tourist single entry visa. I will make sure everyone has the correct link to go to apply for that visa. And make sure the process is kind of clear so everyone knows what they need to do. And usually in the booking system, it's really great because you do get automated reminders for things like booking your flights, making sure you've got travel insurance, making sure you've got your visa organized, letting me know emergency contact, dietary requirements. There's a few little things that we need to kind of get sorted. And the booking system's really great at just collating all that information and making sure we have it all done by the date that we need to. So yeah, visas is something else to keep in mind for having that organised before we go. Great question. Is there anything else before we wrap up? What was I going to say? Repellent is another thing to just remember to pack as well. insect repellent. Like everywhere in Asia, there are mozzies in Sri Lanka. And yep, I think that was pretty much everything on my list. Sue has said vaccinations. Look, it's a good question as well, Sue, and I think it's probably best to just make sure you're up to date with your doctor with some of the kind of critical things like measles and tetanus, and definitely chat to your doctor about any of those things because they will have it all kind of worked out what you need. There's no compulsory vaccinations. You might like to look into antimalarials. I know dengue fever is prevalent in all throughout Asia and it's in Sri Lanka as well. But for that, you really just need to make sure you've got repellent and that you cover up at dusk and dawn. But yeah, doctor is a great first stop, or even on Smart Traveller, they do have a little outline of some of the health things to consider for every country. So you can just have a quick squiz and see if there's anything on there that looks like something you might have missed. So yeah, that's probably the best answer for that. But yeah, definitely make sure you've got all your medications and things that you need while you're away. Sunscreen and repellent, it's sometimes hard to get, the quality and the brands that we're used to when we're overseas. So good to pack enough of those. Yeah, thanks for Greta. Oh, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for being here. I wish I could see you all. It's nice to know you're there though. So thanks for all your comments and questions. Again, please reach out. I am always happy to chat to you via text, via email, via the phone. And definitely, if you're keen, jump on and grab one of those early bird booking bonuses. I will pop the booking link in the chat for us now. So if you want to go ahead and do that, you can do that. If you'd prefer to have a chat with me before you book, that is perfectly fine. You can send me a message and we can book in a time to have that chat as well. And yeah, if you want to twin share and you don't have anyone to travel with, but you still want to twin share, that is possible as well. Just let me know when you book, just a little note in the booking system. And then we can hopefully, fingers crossed, there's someone else that wants to twin share with you. That's happened on the last trip actually for next month. I've got 2 people who don't know each other who have opted to twin share with each other, which I think is great. It does keep the costs down as well if you're happy to. And some people hate sharing a room with someone else, so I totally get that as well. Each to their own, and that is perfectly fine. Thanks, Mandy. Look at the website. Yep. Missy, hi, Deb. I didn't know you were here. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Yay. Cambodia. Yay, it's coming up soon. Fantastic. Oh, thanks, Danielle. Amazing adventures to be had. I know. I'm very, very, very excited. All right, I will let everyone go and thank you so much for being here, and I will speak to you all very soon.